I've decided to start breaking this podcast into different sections. So the first section is the story of the week, and each week we're going to talk about a story either from the NHS, the fire service, or in this case it's the police. Now a big one which has happened right now is the Manchester airport attack, the Manchester airport assault, where officers were quite fucking nastily assaulted by a couple of lads. Now I'm just on the BBC website now, and the first thing you see is the offender looking all prim and proper in their suit, their nice tailored suit with the haircut and everything else, ready for the camera. So Mohammed Amas was found guilty after a 3-week trial. A 3-week trial for that. It was all captured on video. We can see the cops going over to the suspects, and then the suspects just start fucking raining fists. I would also like to say the taser shot, what the other Bobby did. There was a Bobby that was knocked to the ground and just stood up with a taser out and just deployed it. Absolute pinpoint shot that. Brilliant. So a student has been found guilty of attacking 2 female officers during a large violent disturbance at Manchester Airport. Mohammed Fahir Amas, 20, was charged with assaulting the Greater Manchester police officers during the fracas on the 23rd of July last year, with mobile phone footage of the incident being widely shared on social media. Yeah, the first clip we saw was the cops looking like they were just being out of order, and then you actually saw the full footage. Sometimes I think that the CPS and the police should just release the full footage straight away, but of course there's all prejudice case and all the rest of it. But people are going to make their own minds up. Everyone is on social media. So if you are someone who gets picked for jury duty, chances are you've seen that video first. So if you're going in there only seeing part of the actual evidence and part of the footage in the video, chances are you're going to have a preconceived idea if that's all you've seen. So there is an argument to be made. Should they just release everything what they have? Certainly. If we don't want to avoid prejudice in the case, well, some material is already going to be released, which prejudices the people's point of view anyway. So is it worth releasing everything? I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on this. So, after 10 hours of deliberating, fuck me, the jury was unable to reach verdicts on allegations that Amas and his brother Mohammed Ahmad, 26, assaulted PC Zachary Marsden, causing actual bodily harm. Okay, so this is the male police officer. Prosecuting are now seeking a retrial on those counts. So they bloody should as well. Amas was also found guilty of an earlier assault of a member of the public. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that name. At a Starbucks cafe in the airport's arrival earlier in the day. Right, so by the looks of it, this lad's quite violent. He goes around hitting people, and then when cops grab hold of him, he decides he wants to have a go at the cops, and then gets tasered. The court heard how PC Zachary Marsden, PC Lydia Ward, and PC Ellie Cook had entered the airport car park's pay station area following reports of a male fitting Amas's description, headbutting a member of the public. So he's not even just punched him or pushed him, he's fucking headbutted him. And there's actually the video of the clip here, and it's quite upsetting really. Like, I watched it and I found it quite upsetting. The prosecutor said Amas had resisted as he was grabbed from behind at a car park ticket machine before the prolonged violence broke out. He was seen to floor PC Ward with a punch to the face which broke her nose and also knocked PC Cook to the ground. He was also alleged to have punched PC Marsden from behind and then had hold of him before PC Cook discharged a taser device. A kick and stamp by PC Marsden as Amas lay on the floor was also shown in the footage. Both defendants from Rochdale told the courts they had acted in lawful self-defence or in defence of each other. Of course you did. By that point, you know, if someone grabs you from behind, I think it can be argued if you was to like turn around and push them if you didn't know who they were. Someone's just grabbed you. But as soon as you see their cops, then it's like, okay, well, I know now they're police officers. They're in full uniform, they had the tasers out and everything else. Both defendants from Rochdale told the courts they had acted in lawful self-defence or in defence of each other. Given evidence, Amas said he feared the lunatic male officer would batter him to death, while Ahmad said he believed he was under attack. The defence claimed the officers had used unlawful force as they grabbed Amas from behind without announcing themselves. I'm sorry, how many times have you seen somebody, like, at that point, they're alleged to have committed an offence, aren't they? So your suspicion's there. What's wrong with grabbing hold of them going, you're locked up? Or grabbing hold of them going, right, you're under arrest? Are they saying that you have to tap them on the shoulder and go, excuse me, sir, I believe that you've been involved in some kind of criminal incident. I would really like to speak to you about that. No, they're on the toes or they're running off, and plus, You don't know if they've got a weapon on them. There's more than one of them, and also you know that they're potentially violent. So why are you going to go tiptoeing? It's just fucking typical of the courts. They want the police to be robust and to fight crime, but then criticise them when they're not polite. See Longcastle. The court heard PC Ward suffered a broken nose in the incident, and we can see that punch. It's a nasty punch what she suffered, during which she remembered falling to the floor and everything went black after a really forceful blow to the face. PC Ward said, "As I came around, all I could feel was blood pouring out of my nose. I was just thinking he has done something to my nose, face area. I didn't know what had happened. I was terrified, to be honest. I was absolutely terrified. I've never experienced that level of violence towards me in my life." Mike Peake, chairman of Greater Manchester Police Federation, said, "Amasa's conviction showed the worst side of police work our officers are faced with." Anyway, the story goes on. It goes on for quite a while. And I'll link it in the show notes of this video. But it finishes up with, given the evidence of trial, PC Marston said he was unaware Amas had been tasered and he kicked him to the face to stun the subject as he believed he was attempting to get off the floor. The thing what is really upsetting is that officer, the bloke, is facing potential disciplinary action or a criminal investigation himself. Like, in that situation, it's going absolutely crazy. And you do whatever you can to sort the situation out, to look after yourself. You've had one colleague, well, firstly, it's just a crazy attack straight away. The escalation of violence it goes from 0 to 100 so quickly. So it's not even like a slow build up. Basically, they grab hold of him and they just start throwing fists. So the officers are trying to look after themselves. He's just witnessed his officer being hit and, put on the floor. And then you've got another officer being put to the floor. And then it's just him versus two of them. And then I think there's a mother as well. There's a family member who gets involved. So we've got a cop there who at that point is on his own. He's just seen two of his colleagues be knocked to the ground. And he's fighting with the two suspects. And we're saying that he is now under investigation. If he gets charged or gets suspended or whatever, I don't know what's happened to him in a minute, but if he gets charged or suspended or put on some kind of like disciplinary, that's not fair. That's not fair. And it just goes back to the whole thing of, like I said, they want officers to do a good job and they want officers to fight crime, but yet when they do so, they're not supported. And I've had cops message me and say, like, I'm leaving the police because I'm scared of doing anything wrong because the force doesn't look after you and the professional standards and everything else don't look after you. So that's the story of the week, guys. Let me know your comments on that, by all means. Let's get into some interesting stories, lighten the mood a little bit. So this section is called Shift Chaos. So Shift Chaos, what's been going on? So I do actually have a lot of messages from Instagram. I've got quite a few things to talk about, actually. If you want to message me on Instagram, by all means, the link is in the description of this video. An officer didn't turn up for work one day. I think I've heard this one before. An officer didn't turn up for work one day, and when officers went round to their house to check on them, they found that they were grounded. So they obviously still live with the parents, and they're probably like 18, 19 years old, quite young, and that they had had their work phone taken off them and their personal phone taken off them, and they weren't allowed to go to work that day. Now, I mean, I moved out of my parents' house when I was 16. So I haven't been grounded in about 16 years, maybe longer. I hope this story is true. I get sent a lot of stories and a lot of them are very similar. So either the rumours, even if there's only a slight nugget of truth in these, it's still very, very concerning. And I think I've heard more of this story actually, and I think the officers threatened to arrest the parents because they'd technically like stolen their phone, and I think it was like the work phone as well. So needless to say, I think the officer was quite quickly ungrounded. But it's just hilarious, if you ground me, I'll call the police. Brilliant. Also, officers sometimes get reasonable adjustments made due to anxiety and everything else, mental health and all the rest of it. But sometimes it can go a little bit far. An officer messaged me saying that they work with officers who they can't drive through cities due to anxiety, officers who can't sit in traffic due to anxiety, and officers who are afraid of the dark and won't work nights. Unfortunately, I'd like to say that this is the first time somebody's messaged me say that they work with a colleague who can't work nights due to them being afraid of the dark. Are we hiring police officers, or are we hiring children who are scared of the dark? It's slightly worrying, the recruitment process, and I've spoke a lot about the recruitment process, and if I can, I'm probably not going to rant about it too much during this episode. But then again, maybe I will. So, I also had some other messages, and I had some quite good ones actually, from people who aren't just in the police but like in the emergency services in general. So I got this one, which was a comment on one of my videos. I was talking about mental health and the issues around mental health in the ambulance service and in the police service, because we all know mental health is absolutely shocking. This is only from what I've seen, so I can't speak for the organisation as a whole. I've been in the ambulance service for a year now, and it's the best decision I ever made, which is nice. You know, you've been in for a year, still quite fresh into it, but still nice. Working with the best people I'll ever work with, that's lovely. But their downsides, I think, because I was older than the other new starters, I was aware of what I was walking into. That's a big thing. A big thing is going in with your eyes wide open, knowing it's not going to be like what you see on TV, and also having life experience. That's a big one. The younger ones do not know what they're walking into. The shifts aren't pleasant. I'm more reserved and withdrawn at home, and I've hit a wall as to the empathy to patients. Hitting empathy burnout after a year, that's quite worrying. A lot of us would have to fake empathy. It's not that we don't care, it's that we have to switch off, otherwise we take too much on emotionally. I can completely agree with that. A lot of ambulance crews are also dealing with pre-job trauma, and they make the best workers, but they'd rather work with patients through their trauma and not focus on their own. You'll also notice that ambulance crews are generally some of the least serious people out there. In training, they tell us all it's to help reassure patients and keep them calm, but I say it's largely for the crews. So I imagine that's a case of keeping calm under pressure, not taking things too seriously, things being quite relaxed and, you know, laughing and joking. The term duck in water is thrown around a lot, calm above the water, but the feet are paddling like mad underneath. With all its flaws, I'm glad to be doing what I do and would still do it into retirement. So that's really, really good. I've not had a lot of people from the ambulance service, so if you are in the NHS or the ambulance service, by all means, send me a message, or, you know, drop a comment on the video, send me a voice note. I'd like to know more about the ambulance service, because they're first responders just like police, aren't they? And of course they have to deal with a lot of shit just like the rest of us. I got another one saying, "Hi mate, loving the videos and the publicity you're bringing to the poor working conditions we cops are working on. Thank you very much. Just seen your video that was uploaded about a cop from a force not having enough staff for 3 hours due to low numbers. Not going to say where, but in a certain force, the division has lowered the minimum staffing levels to make them look better on paper, as they are not hitting the target levels for staff. So instead of trying to get more cops from somewhere else, either overtime or cops sat behind desks, they'd lower the numbers, putting more risk on the cops turning up every day that are going out to serve the public. Keep the videos coming, love the pod, and hopefully be heard by the people who need to hear it." The upsetting thing is, the senior leadership know all the issues, what there currently is, and it's all lip service. I remember the chief con from my old force coming round to basically do like to chat with officers about morale and about the issues what they felt that they needed to fix. And every officer that went in was told, don't say anything, don't upset them, don't say things are bad, just say, "Yes, everything's great, sir, everything's amazing, ma'am." And it's like that's not what they want to hear. And the issue is, if you go all the way to the top and you say things are bad, then the person at the top will be looking at the people below them going, "Well, why are they bad?" So that'll then cause issues with people below them wanting to increase, wanting to climb up the ladder. It's like an echo chamber, isn't it? You've got people who want to climb the ladder, the senior leadership team, who are all saying yes sir, no sir to each other, all kissing each other's ass, all licking each other's ass. And they know that there's problems, but to fix those problems is actually quite a lot of hard work. They would rather fix some obscure statistic to make the force look a bit better. Or in this case, okay, well, we've got serious issues with hitting minimum staffing. Well, let's do a bit of fucking about with the stats. Let's do some messing about with them. And then we can say that we actually don't need that many staff, what we are saying we need. We'll reduce the minimum staffing numbers, meaning that the statistic looks better and I get a promotion. it's absolutely wrong and it's disgusting and it should not happen. But the higher up you go in these organisations, and I'm sure the ambulance service and everything else is the same, and the prison service, the higher up you go, the more you stop caring about the people below you and the people who you are actually supposed to serve, and the more you only care about your actual job and your own career. And that's not the way it should be, but unfortunately a lot of these organisations now are run like a business. And because they're run like a business, they get treated like a business. It's all about promotions, stats and everything else. And when I first started writing the book and I started looking at the pod and everything else, like, this has been really nice for me too, because I was thinking, is this just me or is this just my force? But looking further afield and doing a lot more research into it, I actually see it's not just me. So I like getting those messages and these messages, because it's, if I had everybody saying, no, we don't know what you're talking about, everything's great, then you'd be like, okay, well, maybe it was just me then. But the fact that I'm not, and the fact that this podcast is gaining traction, shows that it isn't just me. I had another message from somebody. Now, they've asked me not to give much context to it, so I'm just going to ask the question. Have you ever heard of somebody being told to break up with somebody or to block them and not have anything to do with them, a partner, as a lawful order? Because this person was messaging me saying that this had happened to them, and I was like, well, surely the organisation can't do that. They can't tell you. I mean, you might have to declare it and say that I'm associated with this person. God knows I have. Some people in my mum's side of the family. But surely you would have to, but surely they can't do that. Surely they're like the human rights and everything else. The right to a private life, the right to privacy. Surely, like, what if you want to get married? Like the right to, I don't know if that counts actually. But surely that can't happen. Why would the job say you, because they were threatened with the job. They said, well, you either break up with this person or you get sacked. You get investigated by counter corruption, and you don't want that on your file. And no one ever gets, no one ever comes out squeaky clean from that. So I'm like, well, that's very bizarre. So has anyone ever heard of that? Have you ever seen that? Is that a thing? But I just didn't know about? Because if that is, and that's, I mean, the senior leadership like to overstep what is considered ethical anyway. I've actually just, fucking hell, wow. I've actually just had a message actually as well. So while I'm on this, I've just had one come through. So you know what, we're going to read it. So this is a live message. So I've just had an Instagram message. I'm a scenes crime officer. I hear a lot about reasonable adjustments that police officers are on, but we also have a record number of reasonable adjustments that scenes of crime officers are on as well. A lot of the adjustments are distance time-based driving restrictions, but some more specific ones, and someone who can't drive in cities, someone else who can't be in traffic congestion, someone who can't walk on uneven ground. Whilst it's a good thing to know that if something did happen to me and I was forced to be on restricted duties, they could accommodate this. For example, there are scenes of crime officers with work-related PTSD, and they can't attend a very serious and they can't attend select jobs for obvious reasons. However, it seems as though a lot of these restrictions are just in place because it's an easy option to reduce your workload. So this person's saying that I can't go to that because of X, Y, and Z, meaning that they just reduce the workload. They don't get reviewed and no help is given to get those people fit and well off restrictions. So that's really interesting. So they're happy to say, okay, because of X, Y, and Z, you can't do this. But they're not looking at, okay, well, how do we actually help you and prevent this from happening in the future? And how do we look after you? Without new structure and new management system implemented just over 2 years ago, the number of people on restrictions increased greatly. To be honest, before this time, I'd never even heard of reasonable adjustments. But now with numerous issues such as managers who have never even done our job, that's a massive problem. Some straight out of university, as well, massive problem. Being expected to work ridiculous hours. This person says they've once had to work a 26-hour shift and they're not the only one. It has forced a culture where people get these adjustments just to protect themselves, but also just because they can do it easily. We just stay for the love of the job and that we're helping in some way. And you know what? Scenes of crime officers are very much overlooked. They are an integral part of the investigations, very integral part of the police force as well. But that is really interesting, the whole thing of looking after the officers to the point that they can be actually brought back to full duty. Surely you think there'd be some therapy or some occupational health. Like, if you were in work and you were told you said, I can't go to X, Y, and Z, then surely the service should go, okay, well, let's look into that because you clearly have some issues. Because it would benefit us because it means that you can then attend these incidents. And plus helping the employee too. So there's some fucking hilarious sums coming up here, right? So an officer who we shall refer to as PC Stan, hello PC Stan, sent me some information that they wanted to be included on the pod. And again, thank you PC Stan. PC Stan states, I was known as the shit magnet at work. Now, I've worked with a few shit magnets. I worked with an officer who did walk in for a minor incident and he'd come out with like a rape or historic GBH or something. So I know the term shit magnet quite well. If something odd or extreme was going to happen, it usually happened to me. Most of these incidents happened while commuting. For example, I once came across a woman who was unconscious and not breathing and turning blue. That sounds absolutely awful. I stepped in and did what I could to save them. Excellent work. On another occasion, I was walking home when two people on a moped tried to snatch my phone. You don't live in London by any chance, do you? They failed, but I managed to pull the back passenger off. He pulled out a knife and I told him to fuck off. There we go. Well done. You trying to nick my phone, you cheeky bastard? You pull a knife out on me? Fuck you. All right, okay. I even caught it on video, and a few days later, the back passenger was arrested. Amazing. Ironically, a couple of weeks later, the same moped driver was shot dead in a separate incident. Well, you know, silly games and silly prizes and all that lot. There are some lighter moments too. One of my colleagues stopped a well-known local addict for a search. As she was searching him, she touched his waist and panicked when she felt something, asking, "What's that?" He casually replied, "That's my colostomy bag." Lovely. She quickly clarified that she meant the thing around his neck, which was a lanyard, but the damage was done. From then on, they were known to us as Shitbag John. Later, I went to view this flat after he was evicted. It was the worst I'd ever seen. Oh God, really? Oh. If you're eating, I suggest you skip this part. There was shit everywhere, smeared across the walls, kitchen, sides, bath and bed. So we had to wear protective gear. A specialist cleaning team was eventually brought in to deal with it. Join the police, he said. It'll be fun, they said. There was also a man, he sent me loads of stuff, there was also a man with a criminal behaviour order banning him from the area. We found him there, and after a bit of a struggle involving 5 or 6 officers, see, if you got recorded on TikTok, you'd have been called excessive. We got him into custody. While in his cell, he refused to come out for interview. We tried interviewing him through the hatch, but he escalated and ended up throwing his all-day breakfast through the wicket, covering us in baked beans. I've had a coffee thrown on me. I don't think I've ever had... Oh, I have actually. Yeah, I have. Yeah, I went to a cell extraction with some guy once, and there was about 5 or 6 of us. And we went in, and he was... I fuck knows how I got up there. He was standing on the windowsill of the custody cell. Like, how? I've no idea. Plus, it was sloped as well, so he's standing there, and he's got in one hand, he's there shouting at us with one hand, like clinging on, and in his other hand, he's got this fucking lasagna or whatever hell it was. He's there, like throwing bits at us. Come out, he'd like mashed potato on me or something like that. It's gross. But he was suitably dealt with. And then there was his well-known suspect's daughter who was arrested. Whilst in custody, she had a... No, behave. So, there was a well-known suspect's daughter who was arrested. Keep it in the family, I suppose. While in custody, she had a pizza delivered to the front office. Turns out she had a phone hidden up her vagina and ordered a pizza while in custody. I mean, there's cheek, isn't there? There's cheek, and then there's just outright just bad manners. Like, that's funny. I'd let her have it. Got any garlic bread? We also had, these are brilliant. Oh, this is another one. If you're eating, I do apologise. We also had residents who regularly sent us photos of human feces in stairwells. It became a game. Is it poo or is it curry? Is it poo or is it curry? Because honestly, sometimes you couldn't tell. I really like a curry, but after reading that, oh, that's fucking... Well, sorry. Don't know why it got me that. I used to work in care, so like feces and stuff don't really bother me, but why would people send you photos of that? Like, why? What did they expect the police to do? Was it just from one person? Was there a serial pooer? Was there a... And the question, was it ever curry? Like, was there a time where it wasn't poo and it was curry? And how would you know? Like, would you smell it? Would you pick it up and say, I'll stop. All right, I'm sorry. Oh God, what's this one? Another memorable case involved a grinder hookup gone wrong. The victim reported that after he stayed the night, he realised his £15 gimp mask was missing. He initially wanted to pursue it, but eventually decided it was not worth the effort and just bought a new one. There was actually a case once, two people split up, and this shows how fucking mad my force was. Two people split up, and one of them reported that the other had stolen their vibrator. So a crime went in for a theft of a vibrator. The person was arrested, interviewed, and needless to say, it was NFA'd quite quickly. Fuck me. The shit you guys send me. The Q word. Thou shalt not mention the Q word. First rule of policing, thou shalt not mention the Q word. I actually still don't say it now. Just out of fear. Out of fear. On patrol one Saturday, a new recruit used the Q word. Minutes later, chaos erupted. A woman had her nose broken with a walking stick. What started as a verbal spat turned into a three-way fight, leaving us sprayed in blood. Needless to say, the recruit learned their lesson and had to buy cakes as a punishment. And I hope they were good cakes. I hope they weren't there. I used to have a colleague, right, and whenever they fucked up or they did something wrong or they got promoted or it was a birthday or whatever, they would always bring shit cakes. Like, I tried my best when I brought in cake. I raided the bakery section of Tesco's. You know what I mean? Like, but this person, they were Morrison's. They were a 12-pack of donuts, and they were like the reduced style, so they were going off that day. And they were like £1 for 12. It's like, put some effort in, mate. I actually bought Krispy Kremes once because I don't know, I passed something. And some cheeky bastard that I worked with complained because they didn't have the one which he really liked. I'm like, mate, they're £10 a box. Like, if you don't like it, buy your own, arsehole. So one of my most unforgettable moments was my favourite local crack user. Someone I'd arrested countless times. I like that. I actually like that. Like, there was a lad who was a raving alcoholic and he used to kick off and stuff. And when I used to turn up, because I locked him up that much, he used to calm down. He'd be like, oh, you're all right. It's like, oh, how are you doing? And stuff like we talk. And I'm like, mate, what are you doing? It's like, oh, he actually used to say, oh, I've got loads of problems and stuff like that. And I've got this personality disorder and shit. And he got locked up and he started saying this to all the custody nurse. And my custody nurse did not give a fuck. And the custody nurse basically said, no, you've not got like all these issues, you're just an alcoholic. Anyway, someone I'd arrested countless times. He came into custody in such a bad state, smelly, filthy, clothes caked with filth, that we had to do a further search on him and put him in clean custody clothes. I was leading the search with my sergeant present, though of course he kept his distance while I did the dirty work. Unfortunately, mate, that's just pulling rank, and you know what? It happens. When I searched his underwear, my sergeant, standing at the back of the room gasping for air, asked if I was going to search them too. I wanted to throw them in his face for that comment. When I did search them, oh, you fucking dirty bastard. When I did search them, I was greeted with a massive skid mark smiling at me. One of those sights and smells you never forget. PC Stan, I think you've got an issue when it comes to feces, because a lot of these stories are to do with that. Anyway, another funny story. A cop said he couldn't, this isn't real, come on, there's no way this is true. A cop said he couldn't chase a suspect on foot as he wasn't pursuit trained. Fuck off. A cop stood between police tape, I can imagine this one's true. A cop stood between police tape and a post because the tape wouldn't reach. So they became an extension of the police tape. So I imagine they were stood there holding on to the police tape. And like, what if they had some from that side as well? Were they just standing there like with their arms spread out like a fucking scarecrow? And what if someone tried to go under the police tape at that point? Like, would they go under the legs? Oh, fuck off, like, Jesus. I've heard this one. So a cop had an anxiety hamster in that if they were too stressed, and I've heard this, if they were too stressed, they're able to leave a job. That would be a disciplinary or a sacking. If he's able to leave a job and he's able to go play with it, or if a job comes in and he feels it trigger his anxiety, then he is allowed to not go and spend time with a hamster. I'm all for reasonable adjustments, but at what point does it become, listen, sort yourself out, you're in the wrong job? Like, at what point do they go, listen, you're the problem here, mate. Like, it's not the job that's the problem, you're the problem. An officer is required to attend a sudden death, and they called their dad to come and help them. Interesting. Now, I never minded a death. Like, they never bothered me. Some cops really didn't like them, but I used to shout up for them. I used to profiteer for them. They never bothered me. Their dad went to the incident, helped with the body, don't know if that's legal, helped with the body, and then complained to the police force that their child should not have to go to such incidents. Listen, your child knew what job they were getting involved in. You know, police, ambulance, fire service, we all deal with the nasty things in society. And unfortunately, part of that is death. So, death and dead bodies. So, now we're going to get on to leadership. And I've had an officer message me, and to be honest, I've had that many things about leadership. It'd be a 3-hour podcast, so I might have to do a dedicated one just purely moaning about the leadership. We all have those inspectors who used to actually really care for officers. I had one who, they were a sergeant, and when they were a sergeant, like, I can't stand the bosses. No, I'm here for cops. I'm here for you guys. And then they managed to get promoted quite quickly. They went from being a sergeant to a superintendent in about 4 or 5 years. So I imagine they maybe had some dirt on the force, but you know, that's pure conjecture. And that's my opinion. It's my opinion. And trust me, when they got that crown on their shoulder, they were all about the organisation. They didn't give a fuck about the cops on the ground anymore. They actually put out an email and said that cops in custody could not use the cups for water, you know, the polystyrene cups. They were told that they couldn't use it for water, and if they did, then they'd be reported to professional standards for theft, for taking a drink of water. Needless to say, they were quickly reminded about you know, human rights and shit like that, and that you can't do that. They quickly backtracked. Wanker. I got one from PCB. So, police constable. My ex was a copper, and I was in a DV relationship with him. That's upsetting. That is upsetting. Because I know of people who are in the police and they have been in abusive relationships. I know of people that are in the police and they've been in abusive relationships with fellow officers. Sometimes people join for the wrong reasons. Sometimes people that like power and control over other human beings join the police or join the services in some capacity in order to extend their power and control over other people. And it's really upsetting, and it shouldn't happen. I was in a DV relationship with him, and when I finally got the strength and spoke up, oh, this is upsetting. I was told by a superintendent, I was immature and should have made a complaint when it first happened. That's fucking disgraceful. That super is now the chief super of violence against women and girls. So when we look at the morality of some of the people who we are promoting, we can clearly see that they are able to answer the right questions, lick the right arse, and smile at the right people, and these people should not, absolutely not, be in the positions they are given. Because to respond to a colleague coming to you when there is a big issue with violence against girls and women and girls, the fact that they will go over to you and say, you are immature and you should have reported it when it happened, is utterly, utterly vile. And that officer should not be in that position they are currently in. Absolutely not. An officer messaged me and said, they needed time to recharge, so they went home early on a night shift, as their colleague who they were crewed with would not stop talking. Like, they were just burnt out, they're mentally burnt out. And I've also been told, oh no, someone messaged me saying that a PC, police constable, cannot go to sudden deaths. Why, do I hear you ask? They cannot go to sudden deaths because they believe that they can communicate with the dead, and it's too distressing for them. Fuck me. I mean, just, what is going on? What is going on? So, the weekly gripe. The weekly gripe. When you can send in your stories and you can get pissed off and have a rant. We like a good rant on this podcast. So, PC Stan states that they have experienced PTSD as a result of the job. I'm very sorry to hear that, and I hope that you get the help we need, and I hope that it gets better. And they have unfortunately decided that they no longer want to do the job anymore. And this is a big thing when it comes to mental health in the police. They keep saying, oh, we're going to get more officers and we're going to, you know, we're going to invest so many millions and so much this. But unless you're fixing the fucking problem in the police force, you can hire as many cops as you want. the turnover is still going to be very high. And with high turnover means lack of experience, which means worse people get hired because they need to reduce the standards of who they want in, which means that we're getting worse cops who can't, and it's a vicious cycle. People don't want to become police officers anymore. Part of that is because of how we're treated by the public, but worse than that, it's how we're treated by senior leadership. I think if the public knew how response officers are treated by their own organisation, their view of policing would change drastically. Response officers are the backbone of the service, yet they're underfunded, understaffed and overburdened. It often feels like response is a dumping ground for those chasing promotions, who quickly realise they do not want to be there. When it comes to retention, I know many officers who want to leave because they're so unhappy, but they can't. Why? Because the pay, while poor for what we deal with, is still better than anything they'd get elsewhere. Or because they're staying for the pension. The pension trap's a massive one. I was in the pension initially, but due to personal circumstances, I just couldn't afford it. And I'm happy I never went back into it, because otherwise I might have not been able to leave. And fortunately, like, a lot of people are in that position. And no wonder depression and anxiety is so prevalent in things such as the police force, because if you're spending 10 to 12 hours a day doing something you utterly detest and you can't stand it, and you hate every second of it, you're living quite an unhappy life. But as PC Stan states, but honestly, if you're that unhappy, you need to leave. If you love the job you're in, like that paramedic mentioned before, and I've had cops message me before, if you love the job you're in, stay. We need people who love the job and who want to be really good. If you are incredibly unhappy, you only get one life, and it's not worth it. Because even if you stay for longer than you should, you may incur so much trauma and so much PTSD and stress that you get signed off with like really severe mental health anyway. It doesn't matter about pay or pension, your health and happiness matter more. Now I understand what this officer's saying, and I agree. You have to have some kind of backup plan, some kind of, whether it's so many months of savings, whether it's a side hustle or a side business, you have to have some kind of plan B. You can't just have everything in plan A. Staying miserable affects not only you, but your friends and family too. Policing used to be a career for life, but I don't think that's the case anymore. Between public perception and senior leadership's lack of care, it's not just the same. And unfortunately, this is echoed by quite a lot of officers. It's a very sorry and sad state of affairs, what we currently have, where the people that we need in the emergency services to have a functioning, safe, happy, and looked after society, like, they're treated so badly, and it's not okay. It really isn't okay the way that it's not just the government either. It's not just the way the government treat us or treat the officers or treat the emergency services in general. It's the senior leadership team as well. It's the people who are put in positions of power that shouldn't be in those positions of power, simply because they can pass an interview, kiss the right arse and smile at the right people. It shouldn't be like that. Like, I know of an officer who he created dedicated time during the shift for or during a set for fitness, and not only that, they created dedicated time for like, support and stuff, and you'd all go out for a brew, you'd go out for a coffee on like a training day or something like that, and you just air your shit, you'd have a chat, just something away from work. And they were really good at getting cops outside of work, like to come together, and we'd all go to the beach or something. And they didn't get the promotion because they were told that, okay, well, even though you've improved welfare massively, we can't measure that. And this is why they come out with super obscure statistics, because it looks good on paper. So it's what looks good on paper which gets rewarded, and it's completely backwards, and it shouldn't happen. We should promote leaders who are good leaders, people who lead by example, people who can make decisions, people who care about the officers and care about the staff. But instead we're hiring politicians, we're hiring people who are good at working the system, and it's wrong. And as a result of that, this is why the emergency services are in such a sorry state of affairs, but I have a really good story here. So an officer who, they wished to remain anonymous and didn't want me to go into too much detail about the specifics of this incident. So I will talk about this in generics, and it also makes it more applicable. But essentially, the officer attended an incident where a male was lying in the street suffering from a really serious injury. Something that unfortunately happens very often. I've been to incidents like that, where someone's bleeding out on the street and, you know, you have to act very quickly to save them. This officer acted very quickly. They were on their own, single crewing again, massive problem. They were on their own. They managed to shout for help and support arrived a few minutes later. Now, a few minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're in such that frantic, high pressure situation, high stress situation where adrenaline's going, and you know people are looking at you and you know you have to do something and you just do the best you can, it can feel like a hell of a long time. But this officer managed to rescue this person's life, managed to save their life. And literally, if they'd got there a minute later, this person would no longer be with us. So if the officers listen to this, I would like to say personally thank you. I feel safer knowing that you're out there. And just more generally, like when it comes to incidents I've dealt with, incidents that I've been told about, incidents of this nature, I'm thinking of them now. Like, just thank you for everything what you do. You make the world a safer, better place. And you may never get a fucking headline about you. You may never get something in the news about you. You get people slating the emergency services to no end in the media. We know what really goes on, and we know the amazing work which we do every day. But I give you recognition. I know the work what you guys do. You make it safer for us. And if you do have your own story, what you want to send in, then please, by all means, you can either send me an email at jdarkmore@gmail.com. Make sure you put the word pod or podcast in the subject line so that I don't miss it. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to share this with someone who you think would find it interesting, find it useful, find it funny. Stay safe, and that's a wrap.